instance, percept sequence as sequence of inputs, and action sequence as sequence of actions till a particular time instant from the time the actions began or from the time the percepts were started to be noted down. Okay, so that is how we describe an agent. Agent has environment. An agent can, so agent is actually an entity that works in a work envelope, which is referred to as the environment. Okay, so there is something from the obvious worldview that I can manipulate is referred to as my environment. If I consider myself an agent, okay, there will be appendages I may have which may be referred to as sensors, and then I may have another set of appendages which may refer to as the actuators. The percepts are received through sensors and the actions are imparted through the actuators. This is the way agent works. Now, so far we just talked about an agent, but when does these agents actually become a rational agent? Because this is the important thing. The agents become rational agent when they start showing ability of being rational. Now, the abstract view of agent, okay, E can be considered as a function that maps the percept star with an action. So this is the simplistic view of looking at the agent operation called as agent function. So agent function from the percept histories, जिसको हमने percept sequence बोला था, so star लिखा है मतलब 0 or more number of percepts. So from the 0 or more number of percepts, I just predict what could be the action. That is how I can capture the functionality of the agent. So agent function can be captured as a mapping. So arrow means a mapping between percept sequence and a particular action. So एका particular time instant ला जेवढे percept आलेले असतील, I can build a percept sequence up till that point, and from that I can decide what could be the action that that particular device is going to, or that particular agent is going to perform. This is called as agent function. So another notion or another definition that we need to understand about agent is, after sensors and actuator, is that what do you mean by agent function? So it is mapping between percept sequence and action that agent actuates, okay, or performs, I should say. Okay, so that is what this particular thing called as agent function means. This is another thing that you need to remember about agent abstraction. Somebody accidentally has put on their mics. Just check and maybe you can mute. Fine. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Anybody has a doubt? No, right? Okay, we'll just continue the discussion. Now, for any given class of environments and the task, we seek the agent or the class of agent with the best performance. ये important चीज़ है. So what we are actually seeking a rational agent to do, we seek that the rational agent, or if it is collection of agent, okay, to perform best possible in the given particular environment and the tasks. So please understand there are two things. Now one more thing associated with agent, and that thing is called as agent task environment. Now so far I was referring to it as environment. अभी तक मैं environment बोल रहा था. Environment वो part है agent के world का जिसको agent manipulate कर सकता है. Generally we are talking about agents that are trying to replace human abilities. तो ह्यूमन एबिलिटीज को रिप्लेस करने वाले एजेंट जब हम लोग बनाते हैं तो हम लोग कंसिडर करते हैं हम खुद को कि वी एक्चुअली सॉल्व और परफॉर्म आवरसेल्व्स इन अ पर्टिकुलर एनवायरनमेंट व्हिच इज कॉल्ड एज टास्क एनवायरनमेंट. सो वी आर एक्चुअली ट्राइंग टू डिसाइड अ एक्शन सीक्वेंस टू कंप्लीट अ सर्टेन टास्क. फॉर इंस्टेंस मेरे पास एक प्रॉब्लम है जिसको बोला जाता है वाटर जग प्रॉब्लम. Okay, what is that water jug problem? It's a puzzle. It's a task given to a particular person. जिसमें आपको दो जग्स दिए जाते हैं जो अलग अलग कैपेसिटी के हैं. Say one jug is of 5 liters and the other jug is of 3 liters. And what we intend to do is we have a collection or a tank full of water. And for this water jug problem, what we need to do is we need to use these two jugs. We can pour water from this tank into the jug by putting the tank inside the jug and getting to. So there is no marking on the jug, by the way. We know the capacities, this being 5 liters, this being 3 liters. Okay, this is a very huge tank. So I can consider this to be a infinitely uh, infinite amount of water that is available to me. A very large collection of water is there in the tank. Ultimately, what I require in water jug problem is I want to have exactly 2 liters of water, okay, in the tank with 5 liter quantity. In the tank with 5 liter quantity, and I want that 3 liter jug to be empty. So ultimately 3 liter jug empty रहेगा, 5 liter के जग में 2 liter water मुझे चाहिए. I don't have marking on that particular any of the jugs, but I know their capacities. Okay. Now this is a puzzle, right? This is a puzzle. This is a task. So agent task environment refers to certain descriptions about the system which is performing the computation. Okay, similarly, so for the agent that solves water jug problem, the description that I gave you in English would be the description of the agent task environment. Now, to understand what is there in the agent task environment and who is our agent, I should be able to understand what are sensors, what are actuators, and I should know how I judge the performance of the agent. Because ultimately, if the agent is rational agent, then it is set to perform such that it always selects the correct action, right? It always selects the correct action. So I need to watch for the performance of the agent. So I need to watch for or understand how do I define the agent performance. Okay, and agent performance is always linked with the environment in which the agent is working. Okay, so these two properties of the agent, one is the agent task environment. So I define what is the task environment. It is the envelope, it is the part of world, it is the part of the world agent's world view that can be manipulated by agent actions. Okay, this is called as task environment. And then what we require to understand, to know more about agent is finally called as performance measure. Performance measure. Okay, so if I'm able to identify these four things, one is I need to identify what are the sensors, then I need to understand what are the actuators for the particular agent. Using these two things, I know or I can think of something called as an agent function. Okay. Third thing that I can actually try to identify given a problem statement to me or given a AI computation to me or a computation which I want the AI agent to solve, then I should be able to identify the task environment in which the agent is working. So what is the part of the universe of the agent that the agent can manipulate or change? एजेंट के जो भी एक्शंस होंगे उससे वर्ल्ड का कौन सा पार्ट चेंज हो रहा है और कैसे चेंज हो रहा है, कैसे चेंज हो रहा है ये चीज मुझे पता चलेगी फ्रॉम द परफॉर्मेंस पे. हाउ डू आई अंडरस्टैंड वेदर और हाउ डू आई एक्चुअली अंडरस्टैंड कि एजेंट राइट काम कर रहा है या नहीं कर रहा है. ये राइट काम करना यानी रैशनल होना, ये हमने बोला था. So there has to be some measurement done or some kind of metric using which I can evaluate the performance of agent. This is what we learn in control theory. Generally control theory में ये चीज सीखते हैं कि हमारे controllable कौन से है, उनको हम लोग कैसे control करें, right? So this is how I can know more thing about agents. These four things, if I find out what are the sensors for an agent, what are actuators for an agent, what is the properties, different kinds of properties of the agent task environment, क्या क्या task environment के अंदर है. Okay, so these three things will tell me about more about my ability to define this function. Okay, ये फंक्शन को डिफाइन करने के लिए ये तीनों चीजें मददगार होंगी. sensors, actuators and agent task environment. Because agent task environment के ultimately actuators का output manipulate कर रहा है और agent task environment का state में sensor के through देख रहा हूँ. So based on agent task environment's properties, I would understand many things about how to map sensory inputs to actions, because ultimately agent function is what is the functional component in the agent. Okay, so this functional component, when it is implemented, the agent comes into being. Now, as the agent comes into being, agent starts its operations, and I would be now able to, using performance measure, understand whether the agent is behaving rationally or it is not behaving rationally, right? So these four components, if I do an analysis of it before I actually try to define agent function, if I do analysis of it, these four components, if I do analysis of what are sensors for a particular problem, what are actuators in a particular problem, what is the task environment characteristics, and what is the performance measure, how do I define the performance measure, then I will be in a position to define this. After doing this analysis, okay, analysis की जगह पे K आ गया, sorry for typos. Okay. After doing this analysis, I would be in a position to define this agent function, and then I may decide some programming language or programming tool to translate it into a program, which can be referred to then as an agent program. Okay. So this is the notion of agent function. Agent function defines the functionality of agent. Per se, it's just a mapping. Mapping between what? Mapping between percept sequence and the action the agent performs. Now, why percept sequence they have chosen to define the agent function and not the single percept? The reason behind that is when you choose percept sequence, that means you are paying attention to all the details right from the first sensory input till now. You are remembering the complete percept history. As you are remembering the percept history, you are remembering what your previous action did to the universe. आपका जो यूनिवर्स था, व्यूएबल यूनिवर्स था, जिसको आप एनवायरनमेंट बोलते थे, उसका स्टेट कैसे कैसे चेंज हुआ है अब तक, वो आपको पता चलेगा थ्रू व्हाट द परसेप्ट सीक्वेंस. एंड दैट इज व्हाई वी आर सेइंग दैट वी आर मैपिंग परसेप्ट सीक्वेंस टू एक्शन. मैं अगर पूरा परसेप्ट सीक्वेंस याद रखूंगा और उसके हिसाब से मेरा एक्शन डिसाइड करूंगा, दैट मीन्स माय करंट एक्शन विल बी बेस्ड ऑन ड्यू डिलिजेंस ऑफ ऑल माय प्रीवियस एक्शंस plus the current percept. That means I have kept the invariant of taking the right decision every time I take a decision. Every time I take a new decision, I always do a due diligence of all the previous actions impact through the percept sequence plus the current percept sequence. Okay, so that is how we keep the rationale behind saying that the agent we are trying to model is going to be a rational agent, because rational agent always chooses the right action. Right action can be only chosen if I have right information with me. The right information would not mean just the current percept and previous action. It would mean current percept plus the previous and all the pre-percepts that I get so far. Okay, so please understand these details, and based on these details, we will understand next lecture something called as, this is referred to as generally as PEAS descriptors for agent task environment. Okay. So we will be discussing this topic next week, next lecture, sorry, not week, it's just the beginning of the week. So PEAS descriptors for agent task environment. Okay, this P stands for performance measure, E stands for environment types, okay, A stands for actuators, S stands for sensors. So actuator sensors together tell us that how the agent is interacting with the environment. Task environment property, this E tells me about what are the different or how exactly is the built-up of the task environment in which the agent needs to operate. And finally, the performance measure gives us the control mechanism. Using all these things as an analysis tool, I may actually get to know the agent, its behavior, and the environment and its description, using which I will be in a better equipped manner to now design a agent function. Agent function would actually try to map the percept sequence with the action that the agent is going to perform just now, okay, so that it would manipulate the agent environment in a accurate. So the agent's property of being rational is dependent on how good I am at this mapping or identifying this mapping. जितना अच्छी तरीके से मैं ये मैपिंग को मॉडल करूंगा, उतना ज्यादा रैशनल मेरा एजेंट काम करेगा, उतना ज्यादा बिहेवियर मेरे एजेंट का रैशनल रहेगा. I hope you now understand why we want to do a PEAS analysis. So PEAS descriptors are the descriptors that describe the agent task environment. Agent task environment is composed of agent, its environment, and the way agent interacts with the environment. That is the task environment. So agent task environment है agent का world view, जिसमें खुद एजेंट आता है और उसके बाद उसका एनवायरनमेंट आता है. जो चीज एजेंट मैनिपुलेट कर सकता है वो चीज और खुद एजेंट, these two are the part of the agent.